Hey, everybody. How's it going? Welcome back to another episode of KDM. K standing for Kit, D standing for Dimitri, the M, of course, standing for movies. And
Please.
to my left, maybe it's your right, but in any ways, the other half of the screen, the better half, is my friend and colleague, Kit Bowen. How's it going?
Hello. Good. How are
Hello.
you?
Oh, I'm moderately ducky. Ready for today's podcast. We are going to be spending our time dissecting, discussing Civil War. Not Captain America Civil War, not the Marvel Civil War, but Civil War, written and directed by
And
Alex
not
Garland.
taking place in the 1860s.
But not taking place in the 1860s. No, absolutely not. I should right off the top, there may be spoilers. There are aspects of this movie that I really have to get off my chest. Specifically the ending and a particular character. But you're warned if you haven't seen the movie. By the time this episode gets posted, hopefully you've seen the movie already. If you haven't seen the movie, stop. Don't have a civil war with us. You've been warned. So and you watch the movie, then come back. Or if you're the type that just wants to know what we thought and like our discussion, by all means. But you've just been warned. There may be spoilers ahead. So as we start, as I like to begin all the episodes, I defer to my good friend Kit Bowen. Kit, what did you think of Civil War?
Well, I was quite gutted by it, to be honest. I had to sit there for a good 5 minutes before I could uh like lift my head out of my hands. I was very, very affected by it. It struck me at very different levels, you know. I mean, the story basically puts you smack in towards the tail end of it, actually, and there isn't a whole lot of exposition for it. You know, there's no reason why it happens. You know, it just did. Um, you know, in this fictional scenario, Texas and California are allies, which we know at this point in time could never really happen. Plus Florida, let's throw Florida in there, and they are at war, basically, with a fascist sort of government that's been that's headed by Nick Offerman, who has a very sort of cameo part as president. And you just get, like you said, you just get little bits and pieces of what the deal is, from, you know, well, he dismantled the FBI to, you know, all this kind of stuff. So you just get kind of a brief idea. But the juxt of it is following these four journalists. Two of them being kind of, you know, more war torn reporter and photojournalist, played by Kristen Dunst and Wagner Moria, as respectively. And then you also have an older veteran reporter that's along for the ride, played by the great character actor Stephen McKinley Henderson. And then finally, you have sort of person who's kind of our eyes and ears, I would think, as audience, Kaylee Spiney.
Don't ever consider that character my eyes and ears. Just gonna put a stop to that. No.
Well, for me, she
my
was Kaylee Spiney, who plays a aspiring war correspondent, photojournalist as well, and she's, you know, she idolizes Kristen Dunst's character. Anyway, the four of them go on this sort of road trip to get to the DC area to try to get an interview and or slash picture of the president before the Western forces and, you know, come in and dismantle it and him. So, you know, it's kind of a road trip film. There's many very perilous stops that they make along the way. I don't know. I was, and then the last. I guess you didn't like the last part of the movie. I did very much. I
Awful,
thought it.
horrible.
Oh,
But go
God,
ahead.
Dimitri.
It was awful. It was horrible. And I'll explain why, but it was horrible.
Well, I didn't think so. I thought it was very powerful. And Alex Garland, who's the writer director of the film, he has made some very interesting movies, in my opinion. I think he's a fairly good filmmaker, storyteller. He did things like Ex Machina and Annihilation. Um, so and he's come out and spoken about this movie. I guess it's a very polarizing movie. But yeah, the last like 20 minutes of it where we get into DC and it's just basically, war, just flat out
Mm.
war going on in the streets. Now there's a few things that really, I mean, I thought as a film it was incredibly well made and the acting was tremendous. But what struck me and what made me feel is not so much the fact that this could happen, which it could. It was more actually to the idea of we have never really experienced anything like this in our country where we, could literally be shot if we walked outside our door. And I just thoughts and flooded over me of all the people in the world today who live that way, who have this going on around them all the time. And it's just, it just, it hardened. It just made me feel and emote. And I was just, affected by that. Just that idea of that. Um, the whole political aspect of it is it is what it is. Everyone's been talking about stuff like this, but I don't really think that the film necessarily, says it's going to happen. It's just kind of what could happen. And also, I love the whole journalism part of it, especially the way the photojournalists handle things like this and taking those pictures and finding those moments and putting themselves in danger to get those moments to show the rest of the world what's going on, kind of thing. I thought that was so framed so well in some parts. And yeah, it was scary. It was scary, and I was quite moved by it. So that's my opinion.
There you go. Mine is pretty much the opposite, with the exception of I thought there was good filmmaking. I thought the performances were fine. But to me, the movie Civil War, it really desperately wants attention. And it's a war movie that puts causing fear over the human condition. And that to me is really the movie's biggest sin. Um, you said something that I don't see this happening here. Well, it's already happened here with January 6th, Trayvon Martin, things like that. It's happened here. Those
I don't like
obviously are
that.
the those obviously are the seeds that I believe this movie takes from. To me, it wears its fear on its assault rifle and it points it directly at the audience. The only reason for the existence of this movie is to stoke fear.
I don't think
There is
that's
no,
true.
no, I do. And I'll say more. There is no reason in the movie for this civil war other than if you know what's going on in current history, or if you care to know what is happening in the modern day world today, particularly here in the United States. The movie has a stance and it takes a side, and it's blatant. I mean, there's just no mistaking what the side is. And to me, without knowing the cause of what happened and to rely on the audience to go, wow, like, and to have to know, and we're already divided as to like the rewriting of what happened on January 6th, which I'll just say right here was a coup that was put down, and it was set on lies and baseless accusations, and people died on that day, and they were trying to get in, and there was a noose hanging outside for the vice president at the time that had his name on it. People like try to like desensitize what happened, but that happened in our history.
Mhm.
So this movie relies on people knowing that. There's no reason, look, as a war movie, you can have an alternate history, right? But there's got to be a history to it in the first place. War movies, just on basis of like what we know of classic war movies, they usually take place or they're about or happen in what was an actual war. This movie doesn't, there has been no actual war, so to speak. At least there's one portrayed in this movie that wants to come off as real, but there's nothing about it that suggests that it's a satire like Doctor Strangelove, and there's nothing about it that says that it's science fiction. We can only surmise that Alex Garland wrote this and that he's thinking a certain person's going to be in office, and there is mention of a third term. So I think it's a fair guess to say it takes place, so long as Alex Garland didn't change what the term of a presidency is, which is 4 years, we're looking at this movie is about 10 years or so into the future of this country. It is the United States of America in which the movie takes place. I found that the character I believed that we looked through the eyes of most, and the one that garnered the most sympathy was Kirsten Dunst's Lee. The character that you had talked about, Jesse. I mean, that character was abhorrent and so annoying to me. The girl who played her well, but she played her as a millennial to a T. She didn't take to um, any mentoring, didn't really listen until forced, and more or less gave the finger. There's this whole silly scene where there are two cars traveling at a high rate of speed, and one person, it's like something out of a Burt Reynolds movie. Somebody goes from one car into the other car, and then she's like, "Oh, I want to try this," and she goes into the other car more or less, and then she gives the finger to those people and says, "Bye, all." And I was just like, what was the scene all about? Like, I know it got us to this other place. And the ending just left such a sour, bitter taste in my mouth about that character and and the situation. I just left, I left angry. I will give credit. I am glad that A24 screened this movie in IMAX. I think it's Alex Garland's probably his biggest movie from a production standpoint.
Yeah.
You saw it in IMAX
Yeah.
as well, and I think we would agree it's a big movie to see on. It was big and loud.
Yeah.
Right. It kind of puts you in there. It was almost documentary style.
Mhm.
To put you into the middle of things and stuff like that was again, I from a tech standpoint, production standpoint, I give it that. But from a narrative standpoint, I think the movie, we all, it's been said too many times of movies, this is the movie we need right now. This is the movie we do not need right now. We have
Well, I don't know.
divisiveness
I
in
don't know
this
about
country.
that. I don't know if we need it right
Yeah, I
now
do.
either. I don't believe that, but um, it's it's a war movie, in my opinion. Be it well, might not, but also I felt that it also had sort of that post-apocalyptic kind of feel to it that we see in lots of movies where you know, like a Walking Dead or something where, yeah, you're battling some kind of some kind of a monster type thing or zombies or whatever. But who are the real bad guys? It would be the man, it would be humanity. They're
Hmm.
the ones who,
Hmm.
once things fall apart, then,
I agree
everyone
with you.
just,
I agree with you on that point. But this movie doesn't, this movie offers, it doesn't offer like how this happened. It
I
doesn't
didn't
offer
need, I
best.
didn't need to know how it happened.
Yeah, you kind of do in this because it just
I
says
don't think
it, you
so.
have to take it for granted that this happened, but like how? Like why, how did we get there? Even in the Hunger Games, and like I'm not a huge fan of the Hunger Game movies, but
Well,
you have a sense
but you
of a
get glimpses
dystopian
of
thing.
it. You get glimpses of it. Like you
You
dismantled the
don't.
FBI, and
Yeah,
and it's a
that's all like
fascist dictator, and that even though here we are in this situation, you still have these little pockets of people who are not even they're in denial of it. They're living their lives
but
like they've always lived it. I thought that was such an amazing little scene where they drive through that town and it's completely normal. They're like, "What the hell where are we?"
you mean
And
except for the two guys up on the
yeah,
rooftop with
but
assault
they're the ones
rifles?
but they're the
You
ones
know,
who are protecting the town to make sure that they still have their thing. I don't
yeah,
know.
and
I was absolutely moved by. You're not going to sway me on
yeah.
this one, buddy.
No, and you're not going to sway me either. I also want to talk about, and here's another reason why this movie fails to me. So there is a question posed at the beginning of the movie. Um, so this girl, this Jessie, is a wannabe photojournalist. She's extraordinarily wet behind the ears. She forces herself onto our ragtag band of people. And because Lee, Kirsten Dunst's character, really is like, I don't want to be responsible for you. I really, you know what? You don't know. She's Lee up to this point in the movie is clearly embattled and clearly broken,
Mm-hmm.
but she still has some remnants, some semblance of a moral compass.
Mm-hmm.
It may not be true north, but it still points north. She knows what's good and what's bad. And I think she's become disillusioned, like a lot of people today are
Mm-hmm.
disillusioned. But she is, she's forced to actually kind of take this girl under her wing, which she doesn't really want to. And the question that's posed is, um, if I were taken down, would you photograph me?
Mm-hmm.
The answer, the answer, the answer in the movie is done technically four times. Um, one time, the one time is Kristen Dunst answers back with, "What do you think?" But the question was answered before the question came about, in
Mm-hmm.
which Kirsten Dunst saved the girl from the bomb. The
Mm-hmm.
opening was actually, the opening was pretty gripping. I'll admit that. The opening to that movie, in that street,
Mm-hmm.
I think it seemed like Manhattan or something. I don't know, but that was a pretty, like, that brings you into the movie. And I thought it was well done. She saves, she saves Jessie. She
Mm-hmm.
pulls her down. And then before she leaves, she's like, "You want to do this? You get a flak jacket and
Yeah.
get a flak jacket and a helmet." Then there was the time in which, okay, again, more spoilers. Um, Lee had taken a photograph of a dead colleague. And we purposely, and it was on purpose that we see Lee going through her digital photos and she's looking at this picture and she deletes it. Okay, so that's more about the character. And then the last time is at the end of the movie when there is a storming of the White House. The press are following the military. They move in, and a shootout starts to happen in a hallway. Dumb kid walks into the middle of it all, and Lee saves her.
Mm-hmm.
Thus, 4 examples, or I should say 3 concrete examples of what Lee would do
Mm-hmm.
if the situation came about, that if that person were to have gotten shot, would she do anything, or would she take out her camera? Well,
Right.
she answers the question definitively right there and then. And now, why she didn't shelter the kid, why she didn't pick her up and go to the other side of the hallway, why she stands up, I have no idea. That to me was like, are you kidding me? And what does our kid do? Raise her lens.
Mm-hmm.
And right there, you lost me with that character. And she took photos of it. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, this person, this mentor of yours, was trying to teach you about humanity. And she was using herself as an example, more or less saying, don't become me.
Right.
And
But she
kid does
became her.
nothing, no, she didn't learn. And she was like, again, that part, I mean, I just was like, why did she stand up? She knew, like, she literally stands up. And I'm like, you got to be kidding me. And she stood up for the one reason. And again, it's just obvious. And again, it made the movie that much more obvious of, like, there's nothing subtle. It was so heavy-handed. I'm just like, look, you've seen war movies. I've seen war movies. It's usually war is hell. That wasn't the message here. The message here was to really stoke fear. And you have to have your eyes somewhat open to what's happening today. And it's preaching to a choir. This movie is not going to change, just like you said, I'm not going to change your heart and mind. That's fine. But this movie is not going to change the hearts and minds of people at all. And I'll tell you, you and I can discuss this movie today, but the true judge of this movie is going to be history. How in 20 years is this movie going to look? That's what I was wondering. Like, what is going to happen with our country that is so divided? And Alice Garland's pretty much, he wants this to be like an important movie. He wants to hold this mirror up to society, but he seemed to have forgotten that mirror's kind of cracked right now. And
I think
what
it's like a warning.
I don't need a warning. I see what's happening. I'm already afraid, to be honest with you. So, look, production value and everything was great. The sound mix was great. I say that performances were what they were supposed to be, but there really was no character. There was nobody outside of Kirsten Dunst as Lee. She was the person that I was um, following. And, everybody, the one guy, the New York Times reporter, I mean, come on, you just couldn't get any more cliche about a character.
You mean the older
Her
guy?
colleague, the older guy. Yeah. I mean, if you
Well, I
couldn't
don't know.
figure
I
that,
was absolutely mesmerized by this character. So I was
yeah,
in it with him, and I don't know. I loved the whole journalistic part of it. I love the movies about journalism as well, as much as anything else. And Kristen Dunst came out and said, yeah, sure, it's a war movie, but I really feel like it's a love letter to journalism. So that was kind of how
I,
she approached it.
it's interesting. The whole concept of the movie is they have to get to Washington. They want to get to Washington to get what could potentially be the last interview with the president.
Mm-hmm.
That's That's the journey. But throughout the journey, something should be learned. And I didn't see anything that was learned. Um, the her friend, the reporter, the journalist who is going to conduct the interview. Right now,
Wagner Mora.
Wagner, yeah, his character was Joel. Again, his he gets his interview, and I was like,
he gets his quote.
He gets his quote, but for what? Like, for what? Like, your colleagues and everything, what you put them through to get that quote, like, they didn't care about what people were going through.
Well, I felt like it was a Bin Laden moment, where they go in there, get the bad guy kind of thing, and persevere.
Yeah.
I just saying that last 20 minutes was so alarming and affecting, and the whole theater is just pounding with the war and the shooting and everything. It had my heart. And then when the movie ended for us, everyone clapped. I mean, I think a lot of people were probably felt this, look, I said, it definitely is sort of a polarizing film in a way that, for you, it stoked fear. For me, it just showed how war is hell, but then the fact that we've never really experienced quite the same way as other countries have.
But again,
like Gaza and Ukraine and Bosnia and all these places that literally have lived their, people have lived their lives just fearing to be shot if they walk outside their door. Yeah, I mean, we've had skirmishes, and we've had a lot of bad stuff happen too. And look, January 6th was definitely an attempted coup, I should say. And but they didn't take to the streets afterwards with guns and start shooting people on the streets. I mean,
I'm sorry. There was a time when a certain orangutan crossed the street during a protest to go to a church to hold a Bible like upside down, and they shot peaceful protesters with bean bags, and they gassed them. People who had their hands up in the air.
I'm just talking about people getting shot by guns on the streets.
Trayvon Martin got shot.
One person got shot.
Oh,
I mean, but I'm saying there's skirmishes. There's skirmishes.
It happens more than you're saying in this country right now.
But not like this movie. It's not like someone living in Gaza.
This movie is pretending that it's a history.
It's not pretending. It's just showing it's a fictional look at what could happen if our country went to civil war.
I'm seeing it play out in real time, and I hope that it doesn't get to that point.
Yeah,
I mean, yeah, I mean, I
don't. I have a lot of hope for that. But the movie itself was just very affecting as a standalone film.
As a standalone, but it can't be a standalone film, and it wasn't written as a standalone film, even by Alex Gardner's he
was going to do sequels.
No, but it's not a standalone movie. It stands upon our history of what's happening now. It can't, this movie doesn't exist. Look, if this movie,
you know what, Dimitri, I don't really want to get into a political conversation with you over this.
But I'm just saying, but I'm just saying, but you can't avoid it either. If this movie were made and none of that stuff had happened, then wow, okay, great. But a lot of that stuff, it's built upon, and it's built upon what's happening today. And that you can't deny.
Sure. I mean, there's always been violence in this country, of course. I totally agree with you on that. I just don't think in the situation where we, have to walk through bombed out cities and, have shootouts with people, shootouts in the middle of a, city or anything like that. That hasn't happened yet.
Correct. You are correct, but Alex Gardner,
But that,
he's going saying,
my
"Hey,
point is, that that does happen in other places right now, and that
sure,
yes, you know, the whole idea of war doesn't matter between what it is or why it starts or whatever. It's always stupid, and it's always about just, you know, it's always about some kind of this group of people think that this group of people are bad, and so then we're going to have to kill all
mm-hmm.
of these people. I mean, that's all war ever is. And you know, whether it's fictionalized or whether it's stoking fear or whatever, that's, you know, it's still a horrible thing no matter what, and in any kind of way. And the country being divided right now is absolutely true. I mean, it is. But you know, I still
And
have
he knew
hope that there.
this
Of course, he knew this, but why shouldn't he make a movie like this? Is you're just
um,
afraid that it's going to make people go out and buy guns
because
and
there
start
was
killing
no
people?
other intent. The movie was it overplayed its cynicism. There was no, there was like at the end of the movie, what happened? Like there was no solution. There was no what are we going to do now? There was nothing. It was just it was a very cynical view. The movie just ends and you think what? What there was like people had no solution to make things better. Like what happens when we do this? Then what? But the movie didn't offer that. The movie, like, and again, I go to if you're
So
making
what's a
up a
good?
war,
So yeah, let me ask you. Let me ask you this. So, say in a fictional situation where you do have like a, because I know there's war movies that are based about war, but the thing is we kind of know how it turns out,
sure,
right? We
sure,
know basically how
sure,
it turns out. So,
sure.
just trying to think of an example of a film that you might have liked where it was like that, where but it was somehow resolved in a way that would make it hopeful in the end. Is that what you kind of wanted, a
Well,
little
like,
more hope?
look, I mean, again, it's not even that. I give me a resolution. Like, don't even like it doesn't have to be that. Like, war movies don't have to end on the like they don't have to end like happy go lucky. Oh boy, sometimes they don't. Sometimes our protagonists will die at the end, and but there's a reason for that. But when you look at movies, even science fiction movies about war, like Starship Troopers is a satire, but it's a
Mm-hmm.
war movie.
Mm-hmm.
When the science fiction book was written, it was to satire what was going on today, or that day, I should say. Forgive me. Um, you know, even and again, I'll take the Hunger Game books, you know, and the movies. Like there's there's a reason for
And
what
that
happened to happen.
and those there's like a clear cut bad guy, and in this one they're really, we just
Sure.
don't know who the bad guy is, kind of sort
Yeah,
of.
we do. It's the president.
Well,
I
I
mean,
mean,
like,
yeah,
if you believe that the president was like, oh, if
yeah,
you
but
come
then
back, I'll like,
you run into other people and you're not necessarily knowing if they you're not
oh, can you
necessarily
hear me?
knowing if
Wait,
they,
wait, where's your other are you okay?
sorry, my thing
Did
is
you lost
shut.
no, I know, but did you lost your other AirPod?
Yeah, can you hear me now?
I can hear you, but can you
Okay.
hear me okay?
Yeah,
Okay, I just want to
absolutely.
make
Yeah,
sure
no,
you
it
can
just
hear.
fell
Okay.
out.
Not that that's a good
Um,
thing, but I just want to make sure you can hear me.
yeah. So you just don't know. To be honest with you, I didn't really know who was good. I mean, they all were just shooting at each other. You know what I mean? It was like, okay, so the Western forces were kind of the good guys, I suppose, but all the people they meet along the way, you don't know where they fall in between whatever it is they're, like the Jesse Plemons scene was probably the one that affected me the most, because you weren't, you kind of figure he's probably on the president side of things, but that's the kind of person that we're talking about in our country right now. It's that you're not a real American if you are from another country. You're not a real American if it's the racist kind of person.
Right.
Those are
And
the
but there
people that
was
scare the shit out of me. It's
yeah,
like
and the
if
people
you
at the
give them
gas
a
station.
gun, ooh.
No, but the people
Yes,
at the
the
gas
gas
station
station.
scared me
Oh
too.
yeah.
Now, there
Yeah,
was
yeah.
another part that I didn't quite um help me out here because you might have the answer. Um, there was that scene that took place at what looked to be like a school, maybe.
Yeah.
Or you know what I'm talking about? You know the scene I'm talking about? Um, there were two factions fighting, gunfighting, right? Um, and the journalists were with these soldiers, and there was the black soldier who was pinned.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh yeah, yeah.
okay,
That was in a city.
that was in a city, and I didn't know if that was like a I don't know. It seemed like a school. I didn't know what was really. I didn't know who was going after or what
Right.
there and what
Right.
faction was
Right.
fighting. Other than
Right.
if the journalists, like the one thing, because I had a conversation, I said, well, it was kind of pro-journalist, but not 100%. But at least the journalists were allowed to travel with the Western forces, and they had
Right.
them come in and they tried to
Right.
protect them.
Right.
Um, but to your point, you know, there are, I mean, in New England alone, if you're driving from, say, Massachusetts up to Maine, Vermont, you you travel by some major signage telling you exactly what they're thinking.
Mm.
So but you're right. The scene with Jesse Plemons, obviously they raided their nearest Army Navy and
Mm.
Target for the red kids glasses
Yeah.
that he had. But he was nonetheless, you know, it was not,
So that to me led me
less.
to a more of a post-apocalyptic feel, It's like when society breaks down, which society does when you're in war. It can, anyway. But when society breaks down, then that leaves open the possibilities of any crazy person going ahead and taking things into their own hands, which is what those people seem to have been doing. So anyway, look, we can go back and forth with this. I get your point of view, I do, but I still felt very, very, very moved by this, and I thought it was very, like you said, cinematically. I thought it was done. I thought it was pretty well done.
I think it's his
As far as
biggest film,
as
but
far as
definitely.
I, and I'm never going to watch it again. I'm never
It'll
going to watch it
if
again.
when it's on cable, maybe I'll flip on. I think
No,
it's part.
no.
I think it's great. I think it's his biggest movie to date, but I don't
Well,
know. I think
Annihilation was pretty big too, cinematically.
I didn't think it was as big as this. Like
Well,
this to me, like I don't know, maybe because I saw it in IMAX. It was big, and plus
yeah.
our assigned seats. We were
Yes. You were
we
like this.
well, we were the first row that separated us, that had the aisle in between us, for people to go like this way.
Yeah.
So I mean, it was big, but it
Yeah.
sounded big. And there was one scene where these huge ass helicopters are coming in, and they were lifting up like these, I don't know, two
I
ton
know.
Humvees.
That
And I
whole
would
scene was
that
so like,
like,
ah,
huh, I was like going.
and they're just
I went to
watching them, their friend just
yeah.
died, and you're like,
Well,
oh,
I was like watching. I was going, how powerful are those helicopters where they can literally lift like that? Like it's like a mini
yeah,
tank.
I
It's
know,
and I
I
was
know,
like, wow. So yes,
I know.
I don't know. I know
And you know what?
Annihilation.
The world is pretty shitty sometimes, but I think
Yeah, but
ultimately,
I have
for
you
me
in my life,
personally,
and
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 you,
that makes
and
it
personally,
a better world for sure.
I live by a positive look in life,
You
and
do.
I
That's why I'm
feel
friends with you. Like
and I
we all need
feel
that.
that even a movie like this isn't gonna deter me from feeling that somehow we will persevere, and I don't know, it may never completely happen where we won't have hatred, and we won't have bigotry, and we won't have guns, and we won't have all of those things. I just don't think they can ever go away completely.
I
Just
just
don't.
say, I just say go.
Just don't.
You get got to vote. But
But
yes, I am
but
very thankful to have you.
yesterday was a pretty good day as far as women, uh a particular person dying yesterday was not a bad thing, I didn't think.
Yeah, I don't disagree.
Yeah.
Um, but just to wrap things up, yeah, no, I'm very fortunate to have you and to have met you, and you are a very kindred spirit. No, I say this. Look,
I
we all
really
need
like it when we
positivity.
agree more though.
Well,
I wanted
it's
you to like this.
but it's I was
It
thinking
is what it
about.
is.
I was no, I was thinking about. I was at war with my review of Civil War. For me, a movie, um, you know, and then I was also taken aback by somebody had said something on Twitter because I wrote a quick review about another movie that I saw, and the person's like, "Wow, you must be taken aback by all the other reviews, and I just sit there and I go, I don't write my reviews for other critics.
No.
I do this to hopefully give an educated perspective of movies and to
But
help a
also your
person do something,
opinion.
but yeah, but not just to shout the opinion out, but to back it up with like you do, because you do it so well. And this is again what I learned about you when we first met. You back it up with film history, film
Yes.
knowledge, you
Yes.
know? So, um, and then I started thinking about it's easier. Yes, the shows are better when we agree. No, they are, but I think back of the Siskel and Ebert days, right? And sometimes when they disagreed, it was interesting and fun to watch. Um, but I think it's just the nature of being human, but it's also the nature of us. Look,
Yeah.
look, folks, I'm just going to be right up with you. It's not often you can find a a person that when you have a disagreement, you can have a discussion with,
Yeah.
and that they'll listen and listen back, and that they'll offer like good insight. So when you find, or if you do that, you hold on to that person,
And you
uh,
start a podcast.
and you start a podcast, and you take the positive vibes of that person, and you let it sink in, and
Yeah.
know that Kit and I have disagreed about things, and we've walked out of movies. I don't think this, I don't think that. But at
And
the end of the
or
day,
I really like that, and you're like, oh my God, I thought that was, yeah, I
right?
mean, but
So,
that's the whole thing. It's so funny about being a movie critic too. When people think you're a movie critic, when they know you're a movie critic, they always want to come and hear your opinion about a movie, which is fine. I'm happy to do that.
sure.
And then they'll go see it and they'll come back. Well, I didn't think that. You're crazy. Blah, blah, blah. And I go, look, that's the whole point about a movie. You experience it the way you experience it. Good,
It
bad,
is, but
indifferent.
but 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 okay. The way I look at it is an art form,
Hmm.
right? So I couldn't be an art critic, so to speak. Okay. Like I can't go to the Louvre, and I
Yeah.
don't have that history behind me. I can tell
Right.
you what I like.
Right.
And like but the professional can say, well, it's not good because of this, this, and this. And then I might learn something. And that's the thing watching Siskel and Ebert is that I actually learned something.
Right.
Even if I disagreed with them, if and all through school too, to be
Yeah.
honest, my film
Yeah.
criticism classes, you learn something, right?
Yep. Hmm.
So if you're fortunate enough to find a friend who's simpatico with you enough that even if they disagree, you
Hmm.
come away and you learn something, well, that's the gift you give me as a friend. And we
Yep.
walk away from this podcast, we may disagree, but at the end of the day, tomorrow you won't be talking to me at all. No. No, it's like
No, it's
we're
good.
we're
It's
we're
all
we're,
it's
we're
it is.
friends,
Yeah.
and we can laugh at one another, and and we don't this isn't brain surgery, folks. We are talking about movies, and I would never, I mean, Kit's a dear friend, and she has been for 100 years now, at least. And yeah, it's great to have a friend or people within the movie culture that you can agree and disagree with, and at the end of the day, laugh about it all and
Yeah.
sit down and have a good tiki drink.
Yes, indeed. Well, my friend, thank you. This was a lively conversation. I think really honestly, for people seeing this movie, they're gonna I mean, I would give it a very strong review. I mean,
What are
I'm
you
high
what
up
are you
there.
giving? Like what's your high up there number?
Well, if I tell you this, you're gonna just go, "Oh my
No, go
God."
ahead.
But I mean, it's a 5 star to me.
Okay. Oh my God. All right. So for me, it's a 2. I'm giving it a 2 because of,
I don't think
I
we've
mean, I
ever
can't say,
disagreed that much.
yeah, well, I give it a 2 because I can't say that I wasn't absorbed into the movie in one way, shape, or form. Like I said, the opening scene is extraordinarily gripping. And there were some other scenes that you mentioned were
Yeah,
kind of tense. There's a gas station scene. There were kind of some things. Um, Character development and character arcs,
yeah,
meh,
yeah.
they for me, a lot to be desired. So that I don't give it the finger. I don't give it 1. Um, it's not the worst movie of the year.
I need
I
to
give it
talk
a
to you.
2.
I need to talk to Christy about this.
You should.
I think I should.
And hopefully I'll give you her number. You can text her. I think you have it anyways.
Yeah, I
You
do.
should text her. Anyways, that's actually very funny. You made me laugh. So, but that's what this is all about, folks. And thank you again for watching. We will, I don't know what are we doing next?
Next week,
What's it?
actually, I am in town next week, so I think it's Abigail, the
Oh, did
our
you get, oh, yeah, yeah,
I
Abigail.
did not get a screening for that, but we'll we'll
Wait,
we'll try to figure that one
okay.
out next
We'll
week.
talk. We'll talk because it's universal. So yeah, we'll talk when this is over.
Okay.
Anyway, so Abigail could be a lot of fun. Thank you, folks. Hey, folks,
Sure.
this is a movie definitely. I think Kit, if you don't mind me, I think we'd really well, we'd appreciate to know what your thoughts of the movie
Yes,
is.
definitely.
Be respectful. Um, say yeah, but I think this movie, I think it was really made to grab attention and to get people to talk.
Yeah, that's
Um,
true.
so,
That is very, very
so
true.
we leave the comments open on the YouTube page. So if you did see it, what did you think about it? Tell us. We'd
Okay.
love to know. All right,
All right.
Kit, love you. We'll talk.
We'll talk soon.
Talk
We'll
to
talk
you
next week.
later. All right.
All right.
Bye.
Take care. Bye bye.